So, good morning. Over the last few months, I have been playing around with this idea of having a tiny house. So, why the tiny house sort of came about is, my son is 18 now, and it is, the time that he's going to start thinking about leaving the nest. Now, I know a lot of parents say, oh yeah, they never leave. I've sort of brought up my son to be quite independent, and he can't wait to leave his mother. So it's inevitable that this is going to happen. And a few things have happened over the, last few years. Obviously, my marriage broke up, and as of the next 2 weeks, I will be completely debt free. So I have the opportunity now to think about the future. So over the last 2 years, I haven't been able to think ahead really in my personal life. I've been focusing on being debt free and wiping out all the debt from the last 8 years of my life. So what does that look like for me? And I've been doing all this research on, do I buy land? How can I can possibly buy land. I have money that I could buy land, but I can't afford a house on that land. But I can buy that land, but it's nowhere near where I live now. So, I'm pretty rooted. I'm pretty happy where I am, but this whole idea that I don't have to have a house, what does that look like? And it's quite windy. What does that look like? And could I have a tiny house and put it on people's land so that I don't have to get caught up in the trap of a mortgage? I must admit, being in debt really stresses me out. I don't like it, and I don't want to, it was funny, I had this older lady say to me, oh, you just have to wait for a man to come along and he'll have a house and you sort it out. And I was so daunted by that. Like, it totally freaked me out. I realized I don't need a man. And why can't I do this? Why can't I do I need a house? I mean, I certainly know I don't want to live with other people. I don't want to, I'm too old for that. I really want to have some sort of an adventure, but what does that look like? And so I was playing around with the idea of the tiny house, and I love tiny houses. I am pretty 99.9.5% sure I will own a tiny house, unless something else, at this point in my life, I know I'll own a tiny house. But Instagram isn't a wonderful thing, and so is YouTube. So I was on YouTube the other day and discovered van living. And it sounds a lot cruder, I guess, than it is. But van living is like getting a transit van, one that you can stand up in, and converting it into basically a one-bedroom apartment. And the reason why the tiny house, I love the tiny house, but the reason why I was hesitant about the tiny house is because the tiny house is really heavy. So I imagined picking up the tiny house and moving it around. Like, I could move it around the whole of New Zealand. I now have a business that is totally not in location. I have a lot of clients overseas. All I basically need now is good Wi-Fi. Not great Wi-Fi, but good Wi-Fi where I can email and stay checked in, as you will. So that made me sort of really think about, do I stay in one place and aren't I just doing the same thing as getting a house, then I'm burdening myself, because a tiny house is quite expensive. So we're looking realistically, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do it for 20 grand, no problem. But realistically, to do a really, really good tiny house that's going to last the test of time, we're talking about 50 to 80 grand to do it really well. And most of that is obviously in builder and the labour, because Pauline does not have the skills to build that type of tiny house. There's a lot of ways to do it really cheap. So then I started to look at this van living, and I got quite excited because van living is a lot more affordable. It isn't sinking all my money into something. I can, it doesn't cost as much, and I can travel around and park it anywhere, theoretically. I've researched and I can have a Wi-Fi box in there. So it seems like a lot more of a easy option. I love the fact that I can convert it myself, so I can buy an empty transit van and then design it to what I need. Some people have like queen size beds in their transit vans. I don't really need that, so so I could really play around with the space and really just pick up and go, and that kind of excites me a little bit. So I was totally keen on the transit van, and it was so funny because I put it on Facebook, and the first person who calls me is my mum to talk me out of it. And she made some really good points, but not enough good points to change my direction. But then over the last 24 hours, well, 2 days, 24 hours, 12 hours ago, 36 hours ago, I got sick. I ate some bad shrimp. Let's not go there. But anyway, I was sick at home and laying on the couch feeling pretty sorry for myself, and then started to look at YouTube. We've got a new smart TV, the first time we've had a TV in 2.5 years. So we just bought a smart TV it's for my son's eyes, really. It's not so much for me. So but I took the opportunity to watch YouTube videos on it, and whoa, and I discovered Caravan living. There's this really awesome woman who is Karen from her name escapes me now, that's terrible. So she has a YouTube channel called Traveling. And Karen has been travelling around New Zealand with a caravan. So it's basically a 1-bedroom apartment, bigger than having a transit van realistically. And she has been just exploring the whole of New Zealand and working and living. And so I reached out to her because I reached out to Bryce Langston as well from Big Living in a Tiny House, because I wanted to interview them on my podcast, because living tiny has been such a sorry, the cat is rubbing against the cats. Living tiny has been so attached to being poor, to having you have a tiny house because you can't afford a big house, right? And that has certainly been my upbringing. That has certainly been keeping up with the Joneses. Keeping up with the Joneses. So I definitely was that from that era, and it all ties into like in the 80s everyone gave us credit cards and didn't really teach us about money, hence why we got into so much debt. So this whole idea, the more I researched, the more I realized that there is a whole new way of living, and it's not any bad or worse, it's just different. And could I do caravaning? So, and it's kind of awesome because Karen has already done it. So it's almost like she's paving the way. And her videos and her website is just so... I actually, by about 9:30 last night, I felt like a bit of a stalker, because I had pretty much watched most of her videos, read all of her blogs, and she just gives a really good detail of how she's done it, the mistakes she's made, and what you could do to do it. And so I went to bed pretty late, about 11:30, which is late for this old girl. I went to bed, and by 1:30 I was awake again, scrolling Instagram to see if there's a massive movement of caravaning. The reason why I like caravaning as well is because your car's not, you're not attached, so you can actually take your car away. And then she found this really cool app where you can find all the free spots where you can park and stuff like that. So right now I'm still pretty in the confusion phase, and to be honest, I won't be able to do this till probably later in the year, because I've got some pretty big projects coming up. But I have never ever been so consumed with an idea before. It's almost like I'm living and breathing this whole tiny house movement. I am consuming everything that I can get my hands on, and it is taking over my life. It's a problem, but I've never been this consumed before, and there's a lot of things that worrying me, like what do I do with my house that I have now? I love living in the house that I have. It's not that expensive. Like one of the really big things at the moment is the house that I live in right now it's a beautiful house for relatively cheap living. So I worked it out. I worked it out that I spend $21,000 living here every year, give or take a few thousand, I think. Plus a few thousand. So maybe 24,000, 25,000. So that's not relatively a big amount for me with my earning potential, but it is wasted money. Do you know what I mean? But I can make beautiful spaces like this. I love what I've done with this house. I have, with relatively little money, I have sort of made it my own. And I could possibly stay here and still afford to travel. And the option is to rent a caravan and travel around. And renting a caravan, I worked it out yesterday. If I wanted to travel around for 2 months in a caravan, it'd cost me about $5,000 for 2 months. That's just spending more money but living more. And I don't know, so I'm kind of confused. And what I love about Karen's philosophy is she travels till she runs out of money, and then she sort of then goes back to work. So I wouldn't sort of be able to do that, because the contracts that I do are ongoing and I have to work a lot. So I love to work. So I want some sort of balance where I'm traveling and working and experiencing stuff. So I don't know. Anyway, so this is sort of my very first video on this journey. So, usually I'm doing videos on social media advice or business advice, but this is sort of more of a personal story. I don't know where it's going to take me, to be honest, and I'm kind of nervous, but basically this vlog is going to be about the tiny journey, and I've got some really exciting traveling coming up. Bryn is with Bryn's eyesight deteriorating as it is, I've decided to take him to the States for a month in September. So we're just working through those details now, and I'm kind of really excited because this will be our first big holiday together. Usually I'm leaving, I'm off speaking somewhere, so I'm going to all these awesome places because I'm speaking, I'm going to conferences and sort of leaving him behind. But this is going to be the first big overseas trip that I can take him with me, so I'm kind of really excited about that. So we're planning that at the moment. The trip as it sounds right now is going to be pretty cool. We are flying to LA, and then we're going to fly to Florida because we are going to Harry Potter World. Bryn's not as excited about Harry Potter World as I am, but I am totally stoked. I can't wait. Harry Potter World is like, I'm just a big Harry Potter fan. I mean, realistically, yeah, I'm just a big Harry Potter fan. Let's just keep it at that. Oh, my coffee's getting cold. So yeah, and then I'm planning to take him to New York. I just think, New York is just such an experience that everyone needs to have, and I have such a connection to New York as well. So thinking about taking him to New York, and then we've got the opportunity to fly out of Houston. So we're sort of working out, maybe we do a camper van down to Houston and then fly back home. So we're sort of playing with those ideas. Bryn really wants to go to, I think, Louisiana. Maybe that's it. I can't remember. Anyway, he wants to go somewhere. So we thought, or renting a car. Renting a car is another option. So what's really exciting is, when you have children and they get older, your relationship changes so much, and it's almost like a surprise, and they have their own thoughts and they have their own ways of things and what they want to experience. They want to start doing stuff. So I'm really kind of excited about the new adventure as well. So this vlog is can have that. It's gonna have little bits of that and my travel as well. So it's gonna be quite exciting. So thanks for getting to flipping heck 16 minutes, and I will keep you updated.